Innovation is in our veins. Soon the whole world will know our names. Sharing our knowledge and freedom reign. We here for the people, you know it's our way. Setting foundations is part of the dream. It doesn't matter if you're new to the game. Listen up now, cause we all gon' say, elevate, 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 higher, elevate, 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 higher. We gon' rise up, we all gon' shine. Work through adversity, stay on the grind. Elevate, elevate, this is our time. Elevate, elevate.
Welcome to the Elevate Podcast, everyone. So great to have you all on one more time. It's your boy Josh
and Reg,
and we're grateful to be back on with you yet again. We got the Bloods versus the Crips up here. You're wearing red, I'm wearing blue, and we are lit up in here, baby. Gang wars have started. We're ready to go. We got some big things to get into tonight. First off, we're going to talk about just, the idea, what apparently the point of capitalism is, because some people in this city of Halifax don't know what that means and what that means for their stores. So we're going to get into that. Secondly, we're going to talk about how to combat. We're going to build a little bit off what we talked about last week, where how to combat the inflation that the Bank of Canada is putting us through to some degree. And last but not least, the NAG, North American Indigenous Games, have hit here in Halifax, and there's some fun drama coming out of that. So we are getting into all of it today. So, Reg, let's get this party started. But yes, first, please subscribe, do your thing. Just a reminder, we do have a members-only episode on Thursdays. Grateful to have you on over there. We talk about what we talk about on this show, but we get into more in-depth and more of how-tos and how to really better your life financially and just in general, especially building your community. So that's where we get into. We got deep into the Tiff Macklem stuff last week and just asking who your daddy really is. So join us over there if you want more of us. You like this face? You like this voice? You like that ASMR? Whatever you are, we love you. Join us over there. We'd love to see you. But first, let's get this party started. Your boy's excited. I'm pumped. But you have a story you want to share, Reg, that you want to get into right now.
Oh man, like when you talked about like enriching yourself financially and in your community, I was like, oh, perfect segue. So if you were on Spring Garden last week, you might have noticed some cops in the area because a 60-year-old white man between the height of 5'9" and 6'1", I was like, that's like all dudes out there right now. Sorry, short kings. But yeah, apparently he decided he was going to rob Spring Garden and rob the TD Bank.
There it is.
Yeah.
All of Spring Garden.
Yeah, all of Spring Garden. Yeah. Rob the TD Bank on Spring Garden. And I was just like, no, like that doesn't happen these days. But anyway, yeah, so he attempted that. Apparently he walked out with some cash, and the cops are asking for any information to be sent to their hotline. And then Haligonia, one of the Instagram channels that I follow, reposted the story, and the comments on that were gold. So I'm gonna grab one here for you.
Do it. I want to see more of this gold that you claim to have. It is really interesting to me, people trying to rob banks these days. He probably came out with maybe $1,000 cash out of it and a lifetime of problems.
Well, I don't know, because he's gotten away with it so far, so they haven't caught anybody. But I just love that the top comment says, "Funny thing is, TD robs me with high fees daily, but that doesn't make the news." And then the next one, "The bank calls it a robbery. Others call it a cash withdrawal." Just like, they're so good. We had the one person that was just like, "This is terrible. Why are we doing this these days?" But I actually had looked up some like crime statistics, and just the amount of crime that happens when the economy goes south is kind of interesting. So it's funny when you have a government that's like supposed to be, we're out there for the people. We're helping people. And it's like, yeah, but your crime, poverty, like everything that's a negative to your well-being and community, like goes through the roof when you screw up the economy. And what do we have? We have a government that's actively trying to do that right now, trying to create a downturn. So,
oh wow, that's a big term for you to be saying, throwing around. You really think it's being done on purpose?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember for whatever reason, I'm just gonna roast you on this for a second. I remember being called a conspiracy theorist by you by saying something like that a few months ago.
I didn't say a conspiracy theorist, but I do remember the conversation because we got heated. Would I say that, yeah, I'd say that I'd still say that the government's creating this downturn on purpose.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Fair enough. I don't want to know what our listeners think on that one. Yeah, because I'm curious. That is a big statement to make. You know, I'll be the person in this conversation who's trying to push you a little bit.
Okay.
Why do you think? Like, what tells you? What signs are you seeing that make you think it's being done on purpose?
The reason I think it's being done on purpose is because the statements that keep coming out about like employment is still strong, and the fact that they just keep spending money like crazy. Like any rational person would say, our economy is heading for a downturn. This isn't a good thing. We need to do things and stop spending, stop sending money overseas, stop giving it to large corporations to build batteries. Like, you know what I mean? Like these kind of actions, and maybe rein in Chrystia Freeland there and give her a talking to, so she doesn't walk out with like the Marie Antoinette kind of like, you know, just cancel your Disney Plus and all will be good. Eat cake. You know what I mean? Like this kind of stuff. And I'm just like looking at it going, this feels very, you know, you will own nothing and be happy. It feels like a manufactured crash is what it feels like. And so from those situational pieces, I'm like, okay, this is where I feel like the government is actually working against the interest of Canadians and against actually the bank itself, because the bank's just like, hey, you know, you got to cool it.
Right.
Especially when you look at like the biggest driver in our economy is the housing market, and it's just still going strong, still getting worse. And it's like, of course, like, you know, the housing market is still going to keep driving GDP up because people still need houses. And like we said on our last episode, just here in Nova Scotia alone, like 150 of them burnt. So that's 150 houses now that you have to put back into the market again, plus all the others that, you know, we are now looking to create for all the immigration that we've allowed. So it's just like, it's just so many compounding problems. I'm like, nobody's that dumb. Like, no, I don't care if like Justin Trudeau can't tell you about a juice box, water bottle, plastic water bottle, juice box. Is that how he said it? I think. But like, you know, nobody's that dumb. So
Controlled demolition is what you're seeing.
yeah, it's an implosion. It's not an explosion. Exactly what you said. Controlled demolition.
Kind of like 9/11. No, just kidding. We're not going there tonight. But I just want to pull that one in there. Yeah, no, I think it's a good point there.
Yeah, let's turn this plane around and get back into
what we were talking about. So Glitter Bean up here in Halifax, Nova Scotia is so this is a local cafe.
It's a cafe.
Cafe here in Halifax, downtown Halifax, North End, more specifically, I believe.
No, it's on Spring Garden.
Oh, you're right. You're on Spring Garden. So anyways, they are, like many other businesses, they've been struggling since COVID, trying to make ends meet, which I can totally empathize with. That's tough to make it through. Mm-hmm. Being a business owner is not easy.
Especially in like the restaurant industry at all right now. Because like their margins are like paper thin. If not negative. Well, in this case, yeah.
Yeah, they're negative. They've been fighting. They have an ideology that they really have built their business off of, and they want to continue to be a place for people in the community that they are looking to service. And they've turned to their community and asked them for funds, not just for the food they provide, but just in general, make them feel better. They've decided to make a GoFundMe, asking, please save our business. This is the tiers that we've set up. If we hit 15, we'll do this. We hit 25, we'll do this. And if we hit 50, then we're going to do this. And they don't have a boss. They are a completely decentralized command, and they're proud of it.
Yeah. So the part that got me, because I was actually talking to a friend of mine on the weekend about this, and he was like, did you see this story? And I was like, yeah, what's up with that? And he's like, yeah, but think about this for a second. He said, they make a point to say that they're unionized and that they all have like, shared ownership in the organization. It's like, so when you go on strike, who are you striking against? Like, what is the point of unionization if you have shared control or any of that, shared leadership of the organization? So it was just kind of like, it felt very much like you were throwing every buzzword possible out there to kind of like make it sound good. But when you start adding them up, you're like, some of these are just contradictory. They don't even make sense. And I think what kind of threw me the most was the fact that it was like, you're asking for 50 grand in donations through a GoFundMe. When you're a business, like you're not a nonprofit, you're a business.
They've expanded their tip functionality.
Yeah. But anyway, yeah. So if you're a for-profit business and you're selling things to earn a living and be profitable, then act that way. If you're going to be a nonprofit or social enterprise, because even if they had incorporated, I think, as a social enterprise, that might change the rules a little bit. But even still, just the fact that like you're a cafe, like you're not a shelter, you're not a food bank, like, you know, I get that you want a space that feels inclusive for the community, but at the same time, like we have community centers, we have like rec centers, like different spaces for that specifically.
We have public funds dedicated to those things.
We do. We have offices of diversity and inclusion, like, you know what I mean, specifically for these things. To ask for $50,000 from the public feels a little bit interesting, but anyway.
Well, development here on the show is they took down the link.
No way.
It's no longer there. Unknown error. Can't seem to get it to come up. I've tried 3 different ways to get to this link, and it will not pop up. No. So last I checked, they're at 13,000 raised.
Oh, okay.
And their goal was 50,000.
50, yeah.
And now it's all gone.
Interesting.
It was up for 3 days.
I wonder if GoFundMe has some kind of rule against like a for-profit entity.
Likely.
Yeah.
Welcome to the show, babies. This is how capitalism works, homies. Donate to us so we can keep our for-profit business alive. Yikes.
Yeah.
Granted, I'll give them the benefit of the doubt where sports franchises do this all the time. So
yeah. Yeah.
Hey, city, would you be able to fund us to help us build a new arena? That type of thing. Yeah, that happens quite often. So I get it. They've seen it before, but it's just behavior that people tend to frown upon regardless.
Yeah, because even with the stadium, when they were talking about it, there was a lot of talk about like, okay, what are the kickbacks going to be for the taxpayer who's now sporting like, you know, $10-20 million or whatever it was that they were looking at getting from the city. And so they were saying, okay, well, there's going to be this many economic kickbacks, like restaurants and other things like that. So they were trying to play it that way. This was just a straight up like, if you give us the money, we'll operate as we did before, and we'll even like have books for you to read. I was like, ugh.
That's not going to work. Yeah. It was reading through the GoFundMe before they took it down. The deliverables were interesting, what they're going to provide. And so I think that's really it at the end of the day, where, you know, when it comes to capitalism in general and just how the markets work, I think people get it really fired. Like, I don't know, this is just an idea I had, where I think I'm starting to see where the public be getting tired of like social causes in general, like talking about how all the things they don't have, regardless if in some cases it's totally valid or not. I think it's still embedded in our culture, regardless of how far we've come or however you want to view it that way. If you want to view it that way, where we are now per se, that we still have it embedded in our DNA that if you don't provide anything of value, why are we giving you things? And I think that's where the fatigue's starting to set in from like these social causes, where it's like, what are you providing like the regular person, like people that you want these funds for? Yeah. You know, some of these cases, like they're bringing up like, well, we had these injustices done to us, so that's why we want this money, or this, that, the other. And that's where the conflict happens. But it is interesting to see these, you know, businesses pop up and say, well, because we're a part of this community, we should get money. It's like, well, people are tired of that. Yeah.
It's interesting because like I totally get different causes that come up, especially like when you look at like the wildfires that just happened. Like there was a ton of GoFundMes, the Red Cross raised money, and like donations poured in, both monetary and in the form of like stuff. And so people were really happy to give to that and felt like it was a very clear, tangible output. And I think that's what's missing. And when we look at like expectations management and outputs and evaluation, like when you start evaluating some of these other social causes, if there's not a clear expectation set with an outcome to be met, like it's really hard to get people to donate to that.
That's a good point.
I know I'm that way, where like I know a couple years back, W5 came out talking about the Canadian Cancer Society and how like they were misusing their funds. And I was like, nope, no more donations to any of like the cancer research foundations or anything like that. What I will do though is I will actually donate my money to a local nonprofit that I can see and walk into and hand them the money in person, because that to me is like, it's in my community, it's doing the work that I want to see. And a lot of those are terribly underfunded. Not so much like the disease prevention nonprofits, because those actually get a lot of money from different research institutes and from hospitals and from people who've passed away and left money in their will. It's things like food banks and shelters and like street missions, like different things like that. Like I'm not religious in the slightest, and I will be the first to tell you that like I don't believe in a higher power.
Yeah, trust me, he will tell you that. I just want to clarify that one up.
However, I will donate to the Salvation Army because the work that they do is real, and you can see it on the ground when they're helping people who are either impoverished or who are dealing with addictions or anything like that. So when I see good people doing good work, then I put my money behind that. But if you're going to tell me that I have a for-profit cafe that, you know, only serves a cross section of the population, and I need $50,000 and thanks. Like, even if they had like a fundraiser where they gave out coffee and they were like, an extra dollar from that goes to, you know, whatever. Like, look at Tim Hortons. It does it all the time.
Yeah.
And they get to write that money off. Mm-hmm. So like there's just so many other ways. But yeah, I think for Glitterbean, what it needs is it needs some mentors and some people to help. Because I think that they're in a good spot in like the community for serving people and actually making a profit off their business. Because I look at Dilly Dally Cafe that's just a couple streets up on Quinpool. It's packed all the time. You can barely even get in there because it's always so packed. So there's obviously tons of customers there. It's just you need some guidance. And so that's what I hope that they get. Rather than a $50,000 GoFundMe, I hope that they get some good business mindset from people to like help mentor them and get them back to where they need to be.
I mean, clearly it works, right? I think Dilly Dally is a great example. Those who don't know, yes, it's a cafe here in Halifax as well. And they did something that I haven't seen very many local small businesses do. They moved in, they were there for a year in their location, and then Starbucks moved in right across the street.
Yes.
And Starbucks lasted a year and a half and was out. And the Dilly Dally's still there. Like
yeah.
That's impressive brand recognition.
Yeah.
To be able to fend off an attack from Starbucks is pretty impressive.
Yeah. And I don't even know what's in the Starbucks location right now anymore. I think it might be just closed right now. Yeah. But yeah, and people I remember at that time, because that was where I worked, was on Quinpool, that road where this cafe is. And I would purposely walk around the Starbucks to go to Dilly Dally because I was like, no, I'm gonna support my local, and everybody was saying that. So yeah, the opportunity is definitely there. I just think that Glitterbean just needs some good mentorship and somebody with some business acumen to come give them a hand, because they've got a good concept. They just need to make it profitable.
Fair play. Yeah, I think I think this is a good segue into some complaints that we received from our last episode talking about buying local. A lot of complaints that people brought up where it's like, yeah, I want to buy local, but it's so expensive. You know, like it's like cheaper just to go to the superstore at times, and just like they just feel like some of these local companies just live off of the idea that just support us because we're local, and they don't really make a serious capitalistic move to try and gain a market share by, would it be lowering prices or giving something more for the price that they're offering. Like, I think there's something to be said about that, and I do see that quite frequently. I think the example would be it's strawberry season here in Nova Scotia, where, you know, the superstore is offering $5 a pint for strawberries, and then you go to the guy on the corner and he's either charging that much or more for it, and more often I saw a lot of pints going for $6-7 a pint, and that's kind of where all the complaints are coming from. It's like usually the business idea that people have, it's like, well, if the superstore is charging that much, well, people have to buy strawberries anyway, so I'll just make mine that much. Or it's like, no, there's some things you still have to apply to your business strategy to be able to lure more of a market share rather than just the odd person who's driving by you on the road.
Yeah, for sure. I can actually add kind of like an interesting perspective to that because my parents actually have a Hascat berry farm in New Brunswick. And one of the things that they found that was so challenging is that they can't get people to pick the fruit. And so they have to keep upping the amount that they pay the pickers. And so it's getting to a point now where they're actually looking at like closing down the farm because they're just like, they've got some other sources of income. They do real estate. They have their full-time jobs, and berry farm is like another one of like 7 different streams of income. So they're doing okay. They're not going to lose a house over it. But what they were saying is just like, it's so hard to get anybody to actually even just pick the fruit. That people are just like looking for such a high amount of like money for the labor that they're like, it cuts into like the total profit that they're getting for the berries. And so they have to either like raise the price of the fruit up so much that it's not even feasible for people to buy it, or they have to accept like lower and lower and lower profits year over year. And so, and they're still paying for the inputs of the fertilizer and like netting and all these other things that have to go into it. And they're still doing the labor of like weeding and caring for the plants. So I totally get it when you see your like on the side of the road strawberry salesman like selling it for, I don't even know if it's that they're like, okay, this is what the superstore is charging, I can charge it too, or if it's just like, you know, if you were actually to look at the real cost of it, it's like maybe it should be like higher for them to actually be making a decent living off of it, but they just can't because they know that they won't get clientele. And whereas the superstore really capitalizes on economies of scale. They're like, we're going to buy so many 1,000 pounds of berries from you, and we're going to buy it at this price. And if you don't want to sell it to us at this price, then we're not going to buy it and it can rot in the field. So I feel like farmers don't really have much of a choice in that way. And then sometimes it is just like individuals like trying to trying to make a little bit more, looking at what the market is and what they can charge for it, right? So and it, yeah, playing off that local brand. But the other thing that I do too is that I actually look at where things are from when I go to the grocery chains. Even if I'm buying through a grocery chain, I'll still look at where the products are from. So I looked at today some blackberries and I looked at some blueberries, and the blueberries were a product of Mexico and the blackberries were a product of Quebec. So I bought the blackberries because it was like, okay, I'd rather support a company, you know, in the nation within a nation that is Quebec, rather than Mexico. So like, these are the different choices that I'm making, and I'm trying to be conscious of that. So, yeah. So if I can't buy locally, because again, like times are tough and money is tight. So I can't, you know, be out there spending all of my hard-earned cash on, you know, premium product. Like I can't.
Right.
But I will make sure that the things that I'm buying as much as possible are sourced locally or somewhat locally. And I think that's really all we can expect people to do, right? I mean, nobody's saying go out there and be a martyr and you know, die on the local cross. Like it's, you know, do what you can. And if everybody's doing what they can, eventually it adds up.
Yeah. It makes a dent, makes a statement, especially to those in charge, right? Or like, you know, I know you're trying to like kind of give our economy over to these huge multi-corporations, but we aren't going to let you do that.
Yeah.
Because we're just simply not going to buy it.
Exactly. The biggest way you can talk to government, to corporations, to anybody in power is with your dollar. That's the truth of it.
Yeah. Eventually look at the point when there's blood in the streets. So there you go.
Mm-hmm.
And by that, I'm obviously meaning figuratively that, you know, when the markets go red, that's what we're talking about here.
I thought you were talking about all the strawberry juice.
Oh, sure. That's what we're going for. Yeah, no, that's great points. Great points. So we'll move on here to the North American Indigenous Games, dude. Kicked off here in Halifax. I'm super stoked.
This one's fun.
This is a good one. Only because, so the Indigenous Games are, you know, made up of reservations and nations from across North America all converged on our small little city, Halifax. 5,000 athletes playing in a variety of different sports, whether it be basketball, volleyball, badminton, and of course lacrosse, which has been a wild one. And we had the big opening ceremony Sunday night here, and our bold Justin Trudeau,
Fearless
Prime Minister,
leader,
came over here, and he wanted to welcome everybody to the Indigenous Games here in Halifax, Nova Scotia. And well, this is what he was welcomed with.
Hello, my friends. We have been waiting for this moment. We've been waiting for this.
I'll try to repeat myself because I couldn't hear myself over all the boos. Welcome. We were trying to do all that. It was comical for it to start off. It was, the OGs. We love to see it.
Yeah. Well, it's like, get off the stage, read the room.
We're not here for you.
Love it.
Yeah, it was comical. Then he gets in his little rowboat this morning up on Lake Bannock and doing his thing, J-stroking. And no one wants you except for, the figureheads of the event. But no one wants you here, man. If that told me anything, I mean, I was pretty loud. And the best part about that was seeing the little 12-year-old in the left corner get standing up to make sure she was heard. That was hilarious.
Man, like, Indigenous people, they don't take crap. Like, they have been handed a bad hand for generation after generation. And, like, the generations coming now, they're not taking it. And so it's funny because when I look at, like, good leadership in Canada, I look to the Indigenous people because holy crap, like, they've survived so much hardship and so much crap from our government, and they're not taking it anymore. And it's awesome what I just saw.
It's something we can all come together on, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like, we're all kind of over our government, and I think it's a good time to come together to fight against it.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because one of the things that I had talked to my mother-in-law about, because my wife is Indigenous and that side is Indigenous. And she was saying, like, we don't want to become Canadians because we don't want to lose our land rights. They said we had all of our land taken at the very beginning, and all we're left with is the reserves right now. So if we become Canadians, we forfeit the land that is our reserve land right now. And because if you're a Canadian, they can come in and just take it whenever they want, because that's what happens to us. It's not like the States where if they want to put a highway through, they have to go around. And you see that house in the middle of these two massive freeways. It's like in Canada, they just buy the house, bulldoze it, and sucks to be you. And so the Indigenous people are like, like, no way, we don't want that. And so that was one of the biggest reasons why they're like, we don't ever want to become part of Canada. I'm like, man, like, if you could change that, like, I think you'd have a lot of happy Canadians, first off. Like, I'd be one of them. Mm-hmm. After putting in a weekend of moving dirt all weekend, I'm like, yeah, I want to keep my dirt. So I get that. And I think you'd go a long ways to, like, start to build that relationship so that it's not this weird nation within a nation stuff, because it feels, I don't know, it's weird.
Yeah, of course. Like, you got a lot of misconceptions out there, and as well, there's issues like it feels like it's a cop out, and I understand, but there really is issues on both sides of this too, and I can see where we're all coming from on it. But like, this whole land rights thing really is one thing that kind of like alerted me to like how the government sees us owning our land here. Mm-hmm. Like, apparently we don't actually own, like, the property you have, the property you're paying taxes on right now, you do not own that land. The government can come in at any point and saying, well, you're going to hand over the land, either we're going to give you a decent money for it. We're not going to give you market value, but we'll give you a little bit of money for it. Either you can take it or we're just going to take it anyways.
It's like hush money.
Yeah, straight up.
So,
which you are the one who educated me on this. I had no idea, like, that the land that I purchased, I don't actually own.
Yeah.
It belongs to the government. It's crazy to me. And so, yes, I'm very much in favor of land rights, and I'll 100% protect Indigenous people, being the last people in this country to have that, and maybe fight so much that we can all get that.
Exactly. Nice. And that's the thing too, is like, when you talk to like the Indigenous community, a lot of times, like, the things they're fighting for, you're like, yeah, like, okay, I want that too. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, they're like, we want clean drinking water. Like, yeah, like who doesn't? And they're like, yeah, and we want the rights to our land. Like, yeah, of course. And they're like, and we want to make sure that like no government or corporation can come in and completely like demolish things without, proper consultation and assessments, and then like a plan in place when things go wrong. And you're like, wow, that sounds like it's really smart. And, corporate Canada / Trudeau government is just like, no.
Don't do that.
It's okay. Yeah. Let me flip my hair again.
These are very interesting points. And I think these are, as you said, issues that we can come together on. And so the NAG 2023 has been really fun to watch. So obviously I'm going to speak from a lens of an avid lacrosse fan. Mm-hmm. People hear about the NAG and it's like, okay, it's just the best Indigenous players from across the continent. Like, cool. I guess that's awesome. And, some people think there's like maybe a lack of, talent pool because it's only kind of, one race of people that are playing. And I can tell you, I understand that issue if we're talking about like, yeah, we're going to watch the best Mexican lacrosse players out there. But it's a whole other issue when you're going to watch the best lacrosse players from the people who brought us lacrosse. Like it's exciting lacrosse. It's a lot of fun to watch, a lot of talented players. And I got to watch the first game today, Ontario versus BC, and went to overtime. It was a blast to watch. BC's captain, Joshua Mills, aside from him having a dope first name.
I knew you were going to say that.
Dude, this guy was phenomenal to watch. He was such a talent, slick hands, and also just had the Steph Curry swagger to him.
Yeah.
Like every time he scored, he's like, Like he scored, they had 14 goals. He scored 6 or 7 of them.
Wow.
He was just unreal to watch.
On fire.
He put on a clinic. And the funniest part too was the issue. I'll speak from politics from Lacrosse, Nova Scotia here in the province. We've done a good job over the past 10 years of developing our talent. We're finally getting to the point where we're actually putting out some good players who can play at a high level. We've had multiple players who are playing in the NLL. It's awesome. We're doing well in this area. We're going to continue growing. The thing we have not grown in, the game of lacrosse here in Nova Scotia, is our officiating is terrible. And we don't have any plan in place to improve our officiating or how to get better refs. We have no clue how to do it. And I love the NAG 2023 because we're about to show on a wide scale because we brought no import refs for this tournament. It's all Nova Scotia refs for this one. And so today, BC versus Ontario is probably one of the better games you're going to watch talent-wise. And we had some of our best officials. One of my friends was reffing. He's a great official. And even then, they almost lost complete control of the game because they didn't know how to officiate a hard lacrosse game. Mm-hmm. I'll give it to like my buddy. He knows how to do it to a degree, but they missed a lot of things in the second period and big fights broke out on the floor. One kid got thrown into the player's bench and 3 guys jumped on him, just wailing on him. Parents were going back and forth in the stands and I'm just sitting in the middle. I was befriending one of the BC parents and he had 2 twins on the team and he was going off and I was like, oh my gosh, what's happening? It was a wild blast of a game. And you go to the 3 teams you want to watch if you're going to go. You want to watch Alberta play, you want to watch BC play, you want to watch Ontario play. Mm-hmm. Those are the main teams you're going to watch. You have Saskatchewan, Manitoba, and Nova Scotia. We're showing up. They're doing their best. But like, if you want to see elite talent, these are the games you want to watch, and a lot of fun.
Nothing from Quebec and New Brunswick, eh?
New Brunswick didn't. No New Brunswick, no Quebec. Mm-hmm. So,
way the cookie crumbles, I guess. Mm-hmm. I know that Quebec has had its historic battles with the Indigenous people.
Yeah. So. I mean, hey, Kanawaki is a reserve there in Quebec who's turns out a lot of good talent, but it's just like I think they might have maybe 2 or 3 reserves in Quebec that actually turn out some decent lacrosse. Mm-hmm. So I'm not terribly surprised.
Yeah.
So it's just it's a much smaller pool to pull from, and they just can't compete on the national level.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I will say that I became a fan of lacrosse when I watched my wife play in Ontario. She was at Akwesasne, which is a reserve that's just on the border between the United States and Canada.
Right near Cornwall.
Yeah, exactly. And I was sitting there with her dad and we're watching her play and she's like, doing her thing. and it was women's box lacrosse. And so all of a sudden this girl just come over and just like slashes her real hard. And Jen just turns around and looks, and she's like, you know, you're next. And I was like, what just happened? And then her dad's like, watch this, watch this, watch this. So he's like slapping my arm, and I'm like, okay. So she comes over and just boom, lays her flat out on the ground and then walks away and smiles. I was like, this is a great sport. I love it.
Yeah, and that's the thing is like with the Indigenous players, they have a reputation for playing real rough. And then when you get a full tournament with only Indigenous players, it gets wild. Team Ontario is absolute brutes. Mm-hmm. They had some big boys on their team, and they were no jokes. BC was a little more fundamental and what's the word I'm looking for?
Like technical?
Not to say technical. They had a little bit more passiveness in terms of like they were more skilled. You know,
finesse.
Yeah, that's the word I was looking for. They had a more finesse to their game. Really good at finishing. Ontario was just like they were just going to beat the lights off, and it was hilarious to watch. So great games to go watch. Do so if you can. If you can make it at RBC Center, they got the 4-pad. All the ice is out just for lacrosse. You will not regret it. I can promise you that. And this is an unpaid sponsorship from them. Like, I'm just a huge lacrosse fan. I love the Thunderbirds. I've played the game since I was 6 years old. It's a fun time, and I love good lacrosse. And I gotta admit, Joshua Mills of BC, gee, he got my attention today. Holy smokes!
He's your hall pass, right?
Oh gosh, you're gross. Oh gee, but yeah. So yeah, that's all I'll say on that. It's a fun time. I will say as well, I said it earlier, but you know, kind of how we view the Winter Olympics here in Canada, where it's like, you know, speed skating's great. You know, curling can be fun to watch. You know, it's good to see some athletes at the top of their game. You know, it's fun to enjoy it, but we're just here to see who wins gold in hockey. Let's get real.
Yeah.
That's kind of what box lacrosse is at this whole thing. It's like, yeah, there's some great athletes out there, but we're really here to watch who's the best on lacrosse. Let's go. So it's a fun time.
You know, it'd be cool. Get Trudeau out there with a lacrosse stick and
yeah, that'd be great. We should do it. Oh man, that was the funniest part. I was talking to this father, and he was the one who brought my attention before I saw any of the videos. He's the one who brought my attention to the Trudeau showing up at the opening ceremony. He's like, "Hey, did you see Trudeau at the opening ceremony?" So I was like, honestly, I didn't pay any attention to it. He's like, "Oh man, we booed him hard. we let him know. I can't stand that guy. The budget will balance itself, eh?" Like he kept quoting those. I was like, my guy. He was going off. He's like, "I kept booing until my wife told me to put a muzzle on it. I had to let him know."
Oh, I love it. There's actually a guy I follow on Instagram. His name's Jarvis Gugu. He's an Indigenous folk or guy from Nova Scotia. And he does a lot of education stuff around the Mi'kmaq people and doing a lot of stuff for people who are not Indigenous, actually. And so I was actually following a lot of the content through his account. So if you're looking for a good account to follow, like have a look at his stuff. It's jarvis.gugu. A little shout out to him because he's got good stuff out there and he's following the games quite closely. So
nice. Whoa. We love to see it. All right, last but not least, combating high inflation. We're all feeling it. Okay, we got the high interest rates. We are debating on maybe selling our homes if we're on variable. Over 50% of us are on variable in this country. Oh, baby, what do we do? What do you do, Reg? It's a good question. I was listening to some podcasts this weekend, reading some material on in these types of economies when the government's out of control, not doing what would be best for the economy. How to react? What do you do? And the big question that kept coming out is, what can you invest in that cannot just be made up out of thin air? Putting your value in the dollar that can just be by a couple strokes on a keyboard can just be manipulated. Probably not the place you want to store your value. So you want to start storing your value in finite resources: gold, silver,
I was gonna say gold,
copper, oil.
You look at the price of gold every single time you have any kind of downturn. Gold goes through the roof.
It really does. Yeah, these are some big things that were kind of coming up. Copper's another one of them. And then the stuff I'm reading, they said don't do Bitcoin. I'm still going to say Bitcoin's up there. I still, because the technology is behind it, it's a finite resource from my perspective. It can't just be made up currently. So I'm a huge believer in that, but take that for what you will. I know there's people who feel differently. That's okay. That's the beauty of this country. You do what's best for you. But the big thing you want to learn is, what is a finite resources or finite resource? What can you invest in that needs actual value ingested into it so that you can make your money on it, and it makes sure it will go up. So when the dollar expands its money supply, the value of these finite resources goes up. Those are some questions to keep asking yourself.
So tell me, is there any legal protection against, Bitcoin from like suddenly being like, okay, we know that there's only this many Bitcoin in existence, but we're just going to add a few more? Like, is there any kind of safeguard against that, I guess? Because that's what would make it not a finite resource. And that's why gold and precious metals are kind of hard too. Because it's like, if they decide to like go mine up the Yukon and then they're like, oh, wow, it's the next gold rush. It's like, there goes the value of gold, right? Mm-hmm. So it's like nothing is ever truly finite except for probably land, to be quite honest.
Right.
But just what are the protections around Bitcoin? Just to feed my curiosity.
Feed the curiosity. From my understanding, this is where we start getting into the area of it where I am not very well equipped to explain it properly. It's one of those things that you can understand the concept, but I'm not good at explaining it. But the reality is the way that it's been programmed and developed from numerous amount of sources, there are only 21,000 of it completely. And we won't even hit the full 21,000 being mined until 30, 40, 50 years from now, depending on, quantum computing and things like that. So from what I understand, the way that it's not even relied on one person who's developed Bitcoin. It's a group of people who've all kind of done their thing. Mm-hmm. And from there, the way they've kind of coded it, and you can't just go into like one branch and change anything. Like you have to manipulate all the branches, which is what's really difficult to be able to do. And so, yeah, sure. Can it be hacked? It could potentially. Is the likelihood of it, from my understanding, it'd be very difficult.
Right.
So that's my understanding of it and why people put in a lot of hope in it as a finite resources.
Right. And I think the idea too, where like, it's blockchain based, so it's not going to be very easy to make any adjustments or counterfeits or anything like that, because it has to check against all the different ledgers, correct?
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Big thing though that happened last week though in the crypto space, XRP popped off. And anyone who holds XRP, congratulations. You persevered and we're on our way up. To those who don't know, XRP is a token that is completely centralized. And the whole goal of it is to essentially replace our current monetary system with how we do payments. So right now, obviously, you have Visa, MasterCard, and all these. They use their own systems, older systems, to be able to kind of make their transactions happen. XRP is looking to hopefully replace that with the digital coin, digital token. Mm-hmm. It's this token now we're talking about speculation from my perspective, is I really do think this token is the technology that a lot of these governments are going to build their CBDCs over and use this. And I'm not going to lie, the one thing I understand about XRP, Ripple's the company developing it, is I've done multiple transactions in XRP. It's crazy how fast it is.
Yeah.
It's lightning quick. And I've done transactions with Bitcoin and Ethereum, and you're at least waiting 20, 25 minutes for things to go through. So that's where XRP is going to really come in clutch. And there's a lot of speculation now that just erupted this week, and we're going to get into this on our Thursday episode, that it looks like our favorite BlackRock has something to do with XRP.
I was wondering that, honestly, because I was like, anytime BlackRock touches something, it seems to go sky high after they've had a moment with it. My one question about XRP, I guess, is just, are you holding it?
I am. I am holding it. The issue with me is, so this is where I'm interesting, right? I've placed a bet on life. Mm-hmm. Bitcoin, if Bitcoin wins, it means the people won. And that's awesome. I really think the people will end up winning. If XRP ends up winning, it means the corporations won. Regardless, I've got a horse in the race no matter which way we're going, and I'm going to try to win regardless of what happens. Obviously, I'm still rooting for Bitcoin. I put a predominant more amount of my money into the Bitcoin game. That shows you my vote of where I think this will go. But no, I do hold a good amount of XRP in case it goes the other way, and I can still do well financially. Yeah.
It'd be interesting to see if there's any lobbying or any kind of conversations amongst governments with XRP.
So that's what that was the drama.
Was it Ripple? You said that.
Yeah, Ripple's been in lawsuits for years.
Yeah.
With the SEC, and because the whole idea is like, are they a security? Do they exist as security? Because if they are, then they can't exist, and if they aren't, then they can continue on as they've been going. And that's what happened is, like, after years of being in the courts, the SEC finally ruled that it's not a security. And that's why I went from 60 cents Canadian up to $1.10 in one day.
Yeah.
It was bonkers. Everyone's like, all right, pump it up. Don't you know?
To the moon.
It's going to the moon, boys. Everyone's got, TikTok was losing their minds. It was hilarious to watch. But this is what we've been, the XRP holders, they've been waiting for this for years.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I'm like, this is getting interesting. And so what did I do? Well, the news of it popped, sold it.
Yep.
And I sold it at like $1.08 and waiting to go. I'm expecting it to go down to probably as low as 80 cents, 85 cents. And then I'll be buying back in and letting it go back up to probably $3-4 is what I'm anticipating.
Okay. Nice.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of like penny stocking it almost.
Yeah. Very similar. Just, what is it? Buy the rumor, sell the news?
Yep.
That's what I've been doing.
Yep. No, I like it. That's kind of how I do my investing too.
There you go.
It's like, oh, this is on a run. It's going up. I'm going to hit that magic number that I have in my head for where I think I want to go to. And then when it hits that, I sell. And I watch it climb another $2 above where I sold and then come crashing down another like 40. And so... And so you're like, okay, I didn't hit the total high, but I hit it high enough.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. That's fair play. And that's the way you should be going. You need to do your research of like what the number is, but do your best not to get emotional and get greedy because that's when you get caught. But know your number, know what you're going to sell it at. Do your best to not pick round numbers. Because typically that's where that's where a lot of the trades are happening or people have automatic trades happening. So that's when things will shoot back down on you and you don't end up getting that number. So I usually kind of do it maybe a couple cents before it.
Yeah. I think when I sold my Bank of Nova Scotia stock, I think I had it set at like 94 and 63 cents or something stupid like that. Yeah. And it hit it. And then I watched like a friend of mine who was also bought into it because they're like, oh yeah, like I'm going to do what you do kind of thing. Had it set for like 94.70 and it never hit it. And then they're like, well, crap, because by the time they actually went to go make their transaction, it had fallen down to like $92. You know what I mean? So you miss out on that immediate automatic transaction. And that actually brings me back to the thing I was thinking about XRP. Do you think that the corporations who are currently running our financial system right now are going to want that? Because right now we have holds and time limits on our transactions that shouldn't even be there. Like you think you put a payment on a credit card, not that you've paid with a credit card, when you're paying the credit card back, that payment takes anywhere between 24 to 48 hours to actually reflect, which is completely unnecessary. Like it should be instantaneous. You can take money off of it instantaneously. You should be able to put money back on instantaneously. So one of the things that I've talked about with family members and other people who are kind of interested in this topic is they're like, no. This is the banks, this is the financial beast doing this on purpose because they want to catch people. And so I'm wondering, like, is instantaneous transactions going to be something you think that financial institutions are going to get behind?
Regardless if they do or not, the idea of if we're going to a digital dollar, they want the best technology. That's been working on this since 2013, 2012, something like that. And they've been on this for 2014. They've been on it for a while. So yeah, sure, they might put their artificial holds on things. There's still room for them to do that, but it doesn't change the fact they're going to build on technology that's far better than what they could do in-house.
Yeah. Don't reinvent the wheel, right?
Exactly.
It's already there.
Someone's already done the work. They fought the SEC. We'll use them. And I think BlackRock is doing that.
Yeah.
So that'll be fun. That'll be a fun Thursday episode. I got some intel for the homies right now. So,
Making it worth it.
absolutely. And yeah, we got way more. Yeah, you look like you got something to say.
No, I'm good, man.
You're good. Gee, well, that was a dang good show, and very much grateful for all of you for joining us. So whatever it is you're doing, whether you be going to the NAG,
Buying yourself some strawberries.
or booing the Prime Minister, whatever it is you're doing, wherever you are, we love you. We're out. Peace.